Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness says the recent U.S. Supreme Court ruling dismissing Mexico's lawsuit against American gun manufacturers will not close the door to progress on the fight against arms trafficking in the region. In 2023, Jamaica had joined Antigua and Barbuda, Belize, the Bahamas, and Trinidad and Tobago to support Mexico's civil suit. However, earlier this month, the U.S. Supreme Court unanimously dismissed the $10 billion action. Dana Davey reports.
Mexico's legal challenge, unprecedented in its scope, sought to hold American gun manufacturers accountable for the steady and deliberate flow of deadly weapons across its border. In the case known as Smith & Wesson Brands, Inc. versus Estados Unidos Mexicanos, Mexico had argued that gun manufacturers are knowingly aiding and abetting the unlawful sale of their firearms to straw purchasers who are trafficking them across the southern border to give to drug cartels. But the justices said that because Mexico's complaint does not plausibly allege that the gun makers criminally aided and abetted retail dealers' unlawful sale of weapons to Mexican traffickers, it is barred by the Protection of Lawful Commerce in Arms Act, or PLCAA. In a statement on Monday, Prime Minister Holness cited the federal protections that shield the gun industry from liability. Dr. Holness says the outcome is not surprising. He says while it closes one avenue through which Mexico and other Latin American and Caribbean nations, Jamaica included, sought to influence the U.S. to do more to stem the flow of illicit arms throughout the region, other avenues exist. Prime Minister Holness says lasting solutions will come through bilateral collaboration, not litigation. Dr. Holness, whose doctoral thesis focused on the ways U.S. gun laws and regulations impact the illicit gun trade in Jamaica, says the same criminal networks in the Caribbean that engage in the trafficking of humans, narcotics, and other contraband that more directly impact Americans are the very ones responsible for the illicit importation of firearms from the U.S. This, he says, represents a common threat to both Caribbean countries and their northern partners. Regarding U.S. legislation, Dr. Holness says there is room for improvement. He cited steps taken to enhance federal enforcement against gun trafficking in recent years. For example, the bipartisan Safer Communities Act passed in 2022 introduced tougher penalties for straw purchases and created new trafficking offenses. More recently, the U.S. has proposed the Caribbean Arms Trafficking Causes Harm (CATCH) Act. Though not yet passed, Dr. Holness says it signals growing willingness within the U.S. Congress to curb the unintended consequences that American gun laws have on neighboring states. The CATCH Act would mandate the U.S. Department of Justice to track and report on gun trafficking to the Caribbean while strengthening enforcement cooperation within the region. He says there is also scope to expand joint operations between U.S. agencies and Jamaican law enforcement to better map trafficking networks and dismantle them from the inside out. In addition, Dr. Holness says there's value in more robust data sharing on suspicious bulk purchases, serial numbers, and interstate transfers. Dana Davey for Nationwide News.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Holness says the majority of guns trafficked into the island were shipped from the United States. In 2023, this amounted to around 85% of the weapons seized. Dr. Holness says the guns include high-powered rifles, military-grade pistols, and extended magazine clips with ammunition, the preferred tools of contract killers, gang lords, and criminal networks. The Prime Minister says some of these weapons are smuggled directly onto Jamaica's shores on boats from third countries, such as Haiti and Nicaragua, but the majority are smuggled through legal freight channels directly from ports such as Miami, as with the recent cache of 233 firearms intercepted at a shipping warehouse in Kingston. He says tracing often reveals that the guns were originally legal purchases from gun stores in U.S. states such as Florida, Georgia, and Texas, but were diverted to illegal channels. Labour Minister Pernell Charles Jr. says about 10 mechanics at the Chinese-owned and operated Wholehearted Car Services Company have been granted work permits. The garage in Ferrypen, St. Catherine has been given the green light to resume operations after being ordered shut in May when it was reported that the mechanics were not working legally.
At the last instance, we had, I believe, 9 or 10 of them that had made applications that were approved. And I know that they have put out some advertisements for local mechanics. I couldn't tell you where they are now in terms of numbers, but our approval was for around 9 or 10 mechanics.
The company has agreed to several measures as part of the deal. Among the measures, Wholehearted Car Services has to allow instructors from the Heart and STA Trust and the Jamaica German Automotive School to understudy its operations to ensure knowledge transfer and local skills development. Minister Charles says foreign workers sometimes fill labour gaps while strengthening the level of service offered in particular industries in the country through knowledge transfer.
We have been seeing gaps in the market for a long time. And you'll be surprised that as the unemployment is falling, as more people are working, what you have is also a set of challenges that arise in terms of having sufficient persons to fill particular types of jobs across the labour market. So, what we're doing, we do with a clear understanding that we have to protect Jamaican jobs, but with the understanding that Jamaican jobs can't be protected by keeping out and creating barriers to talent that can help to strengthen Jamaicans in the execution of their job.
Pernell Charles Jr., Labour Minister, speaking on Nationwide this morning on Monday. Now, Tax Administration Jamaica, TAJ, says it has collected over $18 billion in outstanding taxes through its Special Arrears Settlement Program. The program ended on May 31. It started on January 28 and was originally scheduled to end on March 31. TAJ says the initiative has relieved business people of over $6 billion in interest, penalty, and surcharges. It says the waivers and removal from taxpayer accounts so far relate to approximately 60,000 tax periods. These are associated with assets tax, corporate income tax, education tax, PAYE, individual income tax, and partnership income tax. The entity says over $30 billion in interest, penalty, and surcharge will eventually be removed from taxpayer accounts. This is expected to lower the stock of debt on the TAJ's books. The process of selecting a new president-elect for the Jamaica Teachers Association, JTA, is currently underway across the island. 3 educators are vying to take over from Principal of St. Thomas High School, Mark Malava, who will replace current President Dr. Mark Smith on August 31. The contenders are Lasonia Harrison, Principal of St. Faith's Primary in St. Catherine, Jermaine Williams, a senior teacher at Manning School in Westmoreland, and Dr. Maureen Mullings, a practicum placement officer at Micah University College. Just under 20,000 JTA members are expected to participate in the process. Meanwhile, as Dr. Mark Smith gets ready to demit office, he told Nationwide News that among his notable accomplishments are the One Academy AI lesson plan generator and the pushback against the Jamaica Teaching Council bill.
One of my biggest accomplishments, of course, will be the opportunity to roll out the lesson plan generator, AI-based lesson plan generator with one-on-one technologies. That's a huge deal. That's one of the areas. We've also had a very successful run regarding the programs, and we've been able to push back against the JTC bill. I think that's probably one thing that we've been able to have the government to re-examine the bill, and so we're presently in discussions with the ministry again about the concerns that we have, what we consider significant concerns with the bill. So for me, those are some of the things that I think are really important.
Regarding unfinished business, Dr. Smith wants salary negotiations, which started earlier in the year, to be concluded before his tenure ends.
We, of course, would like to wrap up the salary negotiations. It's definitely in high gear right now. However, we are still not satisfied with where we are. And so we are pushing back against the government and saying a better offer needs to be put forward to the teachers of the country. And if you really think about contributions that we make to national development as well as the contributions to GDP, I think that we expect a much better offer than the one that's on the table presently. And so we're hoping that before the end of my tenure, we can have that wrapped up.
Dr. Mark Smith, outgoing president of the JTA.